All right, we are back, everyone. Welcome to Growth and Truth, an African fashion talk series brought to you by Merchants on Long. My name is Modupe, and I'm from AfricanFashionWeekly.com. I am honored to be facilitating today's discussion with Gugu Peteni of GuguByGugu and Jacques Bam of the Bam Collective. Merchants on Long buyer Semendra Chetty is unable to join us for today, but she's provided a few remarks that I will be sharing on her behalf. For those of you who do not know, Merchants is a long-standing icon of global African fashion retail, of luxury African fashion retail to be precise, and they are now celebrating a selection of SA Fashion Week's emerging talent in a brand new pop-up experience at their V&A waterfront store from now until the end of July. So there is one more month left to shop, and in that pop-up you will find Gugu's work, you will find Jacques' work. Johannesburg shoppers, we are not left out, but we have to hurry. Today is the very last day to visit the Merchants pop-up at the Okapi store, where there's a wider selection of their fine design on display at the Keys Art Mile. So today, Jacques and Gugu are going to give us an exclusive look inside their brands and inside their growth stories, and they'll be talking to us about a few pieces from their collections that will be available at the pop-up, that are now available actually at the Cape Town pop-up, and they'll be sharing the whole truth about what it takes to grow from the wonderful to the challenging. All through this webinar series, you can share your thoughts with us, your highlights, your learnings, and everything that you have to say on social media with us using the hashtag growth and truth. You can also put your questions in the chat for the designers, as we will be taking questions at the end of the session. So good afternoon, Gugu, and good afternoon, Jacques. Thank
Hi.
you so much for joining.
Hi.
Would you please give the people a very quick introduction to you and your work? We'll start with you, Gugu.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Gugu Peteni, and I'm the creative director and owner of the brand GuguByGugu. And our brand is a little bit of everything, actually. I've always defined ourselves as street, but now as we grow, I realize we're a little bit of everything. We like the street, we're gender neutral, whatever the shoe fits, wear it. So yeah, we do a little bit of everything, but we mainly specialize in hand knitted and like handmade garments, and with a very big focus on slow fashion and I don't know, like very slow and eco and conscious fashion. Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Gugu. Jacques, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Jacques. I am a designer. Currently living in Centurion. I've always wanted to be a designer. It's always been my dream. So I always say when people ask me that I think I was reincarnated and I was perhaps a designer in my previous life and I died too early. So I was born to continue my mission. So really, I started the brand because I've always wanted to be a designer, and I've started it because of my love for clothing and my love for creating kind of the fantasy of fashion and the joy in fashion and dressing up, which to me personally and my own personal kind of gender identity and things has also been like a really big driver in kind of defining who I am. And I wanted to create a brand that people could play around with and that people could shape their identities with. The brand is incredibly playful. It's incredibly colorful. We tend to experiment a lot with the space between commerciality and kind of conceptuality and kind of find a happy medium for us to wear that on our bodies. We specialize in a lot of print, a lot of playful silhouettes, a lot of color, and we are generally very inspired by two things. The first thing being the kind of spiritedness of South Africans. Hence, again, the joy and the kind of love for socializing and dancing and making jokes. And that's kind of something that, I mean, that's how we grow up, right? That's what informs me as a human being. And I'm also really inspired by how we emotionally connect to the clothing that we wear and the kind of influence that it has on kind of our happiness and our levels of depression and our psyche and our bodies. And with the brand, that's kind of things that I try to speak to every time I'm designing.
All right, thank you so much. And we will get started with our questions. Gugu, we'll start with you. On a scale of surviving to thriving, 1 to 5, how is growth going in your business?
This question is very tricky. It's a very good question. I think a question that kind of changes all the time. Because we're not in a very like 9 to 5 space, our businesses are very personal. Like I am the business as much as I'd like to think it's something else. It all depends on me. It's all on my shoulders. So it becomes a very personal experience, you know. So one day, depending on where I am or how I'm feeling, the business could be like a thriving four and we're getting it and I'm a boss bitch or whatnot. But then other days I'm like, you know what, I'm sick, but I still need to continue and do whatever. And it feels like it's at a one, you know. So it's constantly changing. It's a roller coaster. But I think at the moment, by the way, we've also just moved to Pretoria. So Bam and I are neighbors. And yeah, so I think now we're at a steady growth. It's very consistent. There's small wins, and that's like where we take the glory. So I'll say consistent, good, steady, 3. I know it's a safe answer, but honestly, I'll say it's a 3.
Right. I think sometimes the safe answer is the true answer. So what would you say is the best growth driver that your business has experienced in the past year?
Again, going back to my first answer, because the business is so personal, and again, this is kind of like a wavy answer, or my English today answer. I'll say the biggest growth driver in the business is myself. As the head designer and the head business owner, and I do everything all by myself. The business solely relies on me. And as we're growing, there's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of up and downs, there's a lot of good and bad, and all of that depends on how I take it. So there've been a lot of opportunities where I could have entertained the exhaustion, I could have entertained the disappointments, I could have entertained the late nights and all of that stuff and been like, you know what, it's okay, I don't need to do this. But because I've always been very persistent and very passionate about like growing in the fashion space and like doing it very authentically and in my pace, I'll think literally I will just give myself this trophy and say I've been the biggest, my English today, literally the biggest growth driver in the business.
I think that's an honest and refreshing answer. I think it's incredible what designers have to do as outside the role of designer, rather,
Yeah.
as entrepreneurs and as business owners. And yeah, it's good to pat yourselves on the back once in a while to rise from all the chaos and
Yeah.
say, actually, I'm doing an okay job. So, what would you say are the highlights of growth in your business in the last year or so? And then we'll talk about the challenges that have maybe come with that.
The highlights, I think because of COVID, my business is very young. So we started mainly 2020, but because of COVID, it feels like we started yesterday or a year ago. So between that time and now, a lot has happened, a lot has changed. I mean, even the move to Pretoria, all of this, it feels very rushed, you know, and a lot has happened within that space. And we've been very privileged to be on some really big platforms and being in spaces are very inspiring. I mean, doing Fashion Week, I mean, doing Lagos Fashion Week, and all of these things have been like very like big momentous times in our business. But I think the biggest highlight I would say is just like seeing the growth and the change, and having to be on platforms such as merchants as well. Younger me would have never thought I'll be in such a space, and I'll probably would have been like, how am I going to do that? Oh my word, it's so stressful, and like run around. But now to have all those things and challenges and rushes and overcoming them, or I don't know, being successful or doing it rather, is the right word. Yeah, doing those things has been like the highlight and the challenge in the journey, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And what have been some unexpected challenges that have come with all of that? So you've talked a lot about how you've had exposure to platforms that have required you to kind of step up your game and kind of show the world what you're made of and be prepared for those platforms and be prepared to take advantage of what those platforms offer. What are the challenges that come with that? Because I think that's what a lot of people want. But there's difficulties in actually rising to those platforms and in making the most of them. So what have you experienced?
With all those platforms comes more responsibility. You know, with every step up, you also personally have to step up. So at times you have to like create bigger collections. You have to expand on the team. You need to draw boundaries with the team. All these things are things I'm learning as I'm going along, you know, because I'm a very cheerful and very like relaxed person. And my team members maybe sometimes older than me. And I've had to be like, you know what, we can laugh and play Beyonce, but sometimes we need to get work done. So with like growth and all of those big steps have come very big responsibilities. I mean, now knowing that I need to like really show up and being productive and being proactive with things and taking initiative, it's all on my shoulders, you know. And when you're provided a platform, it's your responsibility to build on it. So, you know, now I'm on this platform. How do I grow in that? What do I do? What's the next step? How do I brainstorm? So it's that discipline, and you know, and there's so many with running your own business, and I work from home. There's so many distractions. It's unbelievable. You can go from working to baking in 2 seconds. So there's all those with growth, there's all that discipline and you having to work harder and growing. And also now you have a team, so they need to like, you need to guide them and be a leader and not like relax and just play Beyonce all day.
And how would you say these experiences within growth have changed you as a designer?
Oof, wow. As I said again, like the past few years have felt like they've been just 6 months, and just seeing like myself where I was 6 months ago and where I am today. There's so many things I was so naive younger, you know. Like when you're looking into the fashion industry from outside, there's such a very warped view of it. You see all the highlights of beauty, the runways, all of the stuff, and you think that's what you're stepping into, and you don't understand that you're stepping into like proper business and like 20% of like runway and fun photo shoots and whatnot. And I think also what has changed me, I have such a linear view of like growth and success. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to work hard and work my bum off. I'm going to work Monday to Monday, AM to AM. I'm just going to grind because that's the culture. You grind, grind, grind. And you grind and you grind and you grind, but you don't see results. And then I started realizing, you know, you need to work smart and not work harder. I used to literally burn out. And now that I'm older and I know things, I know how to navigate things now. I know how to work a proper schedule. I know how to work within, let's say, 5 hours and make it a productive 5 hours. When I was younger, I'll probably grind. I don't know what I was doing, but it never felt like it was fruitful, you know? So that's kind of like the change in myself that I've seen. And also just like knowing what's possible. I mean, I've started off with like, I built my business with my both hands by myself. And as I said again, younger me would have never thought, and well, English, I never thought I would even run a business at like even at this beautiful mid-level stage that it is, that it's at right now. I can't speak. And like younger me would have been like, wow, we did that, you know, and I never thought it was possible, you know. So it's those little wins in betweens that really have changed me. Now I know what's important. It's the small steps rather than like being on Vogue. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's so important for people to realize that every big step is made up of the small steps.
exactly.
And the small steps count because they get you to the big stuff, but also
Yeah,
because they get you moving forward and they keep
yeah.
your brand alive. So thank you so much for sharing that,
Thank
Gugu.
you. Thank
Jacques, we
you.
will move to you. Will you tell us how growth is going on a scale of 1 to 5?
Sure. So I think you might find that many of mine Gugu's answers are actually quite similar. We had a call like 2 weeks ago, and she was telling me she moved here, and we came to realize that we're actually in a very, very similar space when it comes to like how far along we are with our businesses. So for me, the story is quite similar. You know, it's a very tricky question to answer. For me, I feel like we've maybe over the last year or so, I feel like we've come to sort of a middle point in our growth journey. I feel like we're probably at a 3. We've overcome a lot of the struggles when we had to start, right? We've expanded a bit. We have a bit more reach. We have a more steady sort of flow of income, whatever that can mean for us as designers. You know, but in terms of being a 5, I would not say we're at a 5. I think we're working there, and I think we'd get there. But like we said, the growth process is slow, and you need to be patient. But right now, I think we're quite stable. We're quite steady, but we're definitely not a major, you know, I work with one tailor. It's not like we have this massive studio and this whole production cycle and all of these crazy things, but we're doing well, and we're getting by, and we're happy, and we're making enough to get by and to grow bit by bit and invest a bit more season after season.
Yeah, I think it's important that people understand that you can be exactly where you've described, and have big things happening in public for you and still be needing to grow and still be needing to hit certain milestones. For example, the piece that's behind Jock right now is currently on the cover of Bona magazine. But as he's told you, it's still a struggle behind the scenes to just do what needs to be done, and growth may not look as glamorous inside the business as it does on the outside when you've got something on the cover of a magazine. So, what would you say is the best growth driver that your business has experienced in the past year?
Yeah, so this is actually something that I'm personally a bit proud of. It's personal to me. I think we've done a lot of things, and we've gone to different countries and whatever. But to me, the biggest thing was being able to expand the team. I started the business off completely by myself, right? So, I mean, if there was a production run, I would sit and sew it. I'd grade the patterns, I'd cut, I would sew. I would do the marketing, I would do the accounting, I did everything, right? And it got to a point where I just couldn't do everything because making a garment takes time. You know what I mean? And I find myself not replying to emails because I need to make sure an order gets done. And my biggest dream when I started was to have someone help me sew. That was like my biggest thing. It took 3 years that I was doing it by myself and saving because I did not want someone to come into my studio and within a month be like, there's no more money. Can you please leave? I didn't want to do that to someone. So I worked and I worked and I worked and I saved. And we got to a point where I was like, okay, we can do this now. The workload is way too much for me. I can't sleep 3 hours a day anymore. And I reached out to a bunch of my design friends and I found a lovely tailor who is working with me now. And to me, that's incredibly gratifying as a person, knowing that I was able to build something that could sustain someone that's external from me and not only myself and kind of my family, but another family. Like I've created a job opportunity, which is what people always talk about. And a lot of the times I sit and I'm like, well, you did that. You created a job that wasn't there before. And that to me is really incredibly gratifying. But on top of that, there's a lot more that comes with that. We're able to produce more. The quality has gone up by miles because now we can skill share with each other and we can talk about what's the easiest way to do something or the most beautiful, and what have you learned from the brands you've worked with, what have I learned from where I've interned or whatever, and we're creating at a much larger scale for compared to me doing it alone, and at a much better, higher quality, a more considered approach. We don't, it's not like I just have to now do shit and just get it done as quickly as I possibly can. You know what I mean? It's much more considered and much more beautiful, and a process that I'm very proud of, and that I find very personally kind of fulfilling.
I think that's so inspiring to find yourself in the position of going from someone who needed to create your own employment, to being somebody who created employment for someone else. So it's got to be such an exciting position to be in. What unexpected challenges have come with that and with the other elements of growth that you've enjoyed?
I think the first thing that I thought about for this question is how much I had to learn, right? So I had to learn problem solving and critical thinking and how to be creative under pressure. And all of these things that you always hear, like whenever you go to school or whatever, these critical thinking skills. And I'm like, well, now I can actually see why we need it. Another thing I thought of actually while we were speaking is what was actually also very challenging for me, and I didn't really consider this before, was how many roles I would have to fulfill. I spoke earlier and said I always wanted to be a designer. I never wanted to be an accountant though, but I have to be an accountant as well. You know what I mean? And it's actually really funny to me because when I was younger, people would say, don't do anything creative, be an accountant or a lawyer or whatever. And I'm like, if only you knew that I'm also doing that still. Like I am doing it. I just don't have the degree. I'm maybe not doing it as professionally as someone else does, but I am doing it. I'm the brand manager, I'm the marketer, I'm the CEO, I'm all of that. And it's very difficult to do because I feel like I need the skills that a big corporate company would employ like 50 people for. And it becomes very difficult and I have to teach myself how to do that, right? But another thing that was also very difficult for me on top of that, and I think this was the biggest thing for me, is realizing kind of how big an impact things that happen in the world have on me as a small business. I always had the perception that as a small brand, major world events wouldn't really affect me because I'm not playing in a massive international space, right? So if we're talking about things like the Ukraine war or COVID or even load shedding, and all of these kind of external factors, actually, I came to learn that it has a very big impact on my business. And I really had to learn how to be flexible and how to constantly rethink and reshape my idea of where the brand would be in the future and how we would get there. It would constantly change. And it's not that, our country's necessarily in war, but it affects oil prices and affects all of these things, which in turn affects my fabrics and how much we need to survive, and the taxes and the supply of fabric and all of these things that make it incredibly difficult. And it's still difficult. It's not really something that I feel like we can easily, if something major were to happen right now, it would still be difficult for me to try and figure out, okay, how do we fix this? Because it's not like I have a big team who can forecast the future and the recession and all of these crazy things. But what it has taught me is just to be a bit more prepared, like to be ready for anything and not to be like completely blown away when something big happens and feel like, okay, I need to shut everything down. I've learned how to come up with a solution quite quickly, depending on whatever's happening around me.
So along with what you've described that you've learned and grown in, how else has growth changed you as a designer? What's it showing you about yourself?
To me personally, look, Google also talk about like the business is personal, right? So I grow personally as the business grows. It's a massive part of me. It's who I am. So I've learned a lot of skills, like I said, learned problem solving, critical thinking, all of these kinds of things. But I think the biggest thing that it has helped me with personally is confidence. I find myself sometimes being insecure in the business because you're bombarded with all these shows in Paris on your TikTok and whatever. And sometimes you just sit and think, how am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to get there with what I have? And I think what I had to learn is to be confident and have conviction in what I'm doing. I cannot expect to create something unconfidently and then expect someone to wear it with confidence. That will kind of not happen. That's an unfair expectation. For me, I want to be confident in what I'm doing. And I think I got there now. I think as I look at the collections we've done over the years, I can tell that I've kind of found my footing, and like even the look and the whole brand is becoming very stable. And I think for myself, it's because I found confidence in what I'm doing and I believe in what I'm doing. And I think that has been like kind of one of the biggest gains for me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jacques, for sharing. Gugu, we are going to go to the looks presentation and we're going to start with you. But while you're getting ready, I am just going to share a few of Sumendra's comments that she wanted to share with everyone today about why these designers were selected and how they were selected for the pop-up, and how Merchants has been a growth partner for them and will continue to be a growth partner for African fashion in general. So one thing that she wanted to make super, super clear is that no matter what role Merchants has played, these designers, these 6 designers, today's 2 designers, but designers in general, have all been the writers of their own success stories. Merchants and other partners in other parts of the industry have been vessels to help them get there, but being that vessel to help them get there is a very different role than what they are doing as the founders and the drivers of their businesses, doing the hard work that really makes everything possible. So Merchants is really proud to have in their family of designers names like Tebe Magugu, who is so world-renowned now and LVMH prize winning, of course, Maklosa, which is also so well-known, Lucanio Mdingi, Sindiso Kumalo, who's just done this fantastic collaboration with And Other Stories. But at the same time, Merchants was very often one of the very first outlets to stock these designers before these accolades came along and before the growth that we now celebrate. And so it's a place where you don't necessarily have to be in this final form of whatever your picture of success is as a fashion business. Merchants is a place where they can walk there with you. Right now they're at or a few days ago rather, they were at the Karoo Wool Festival, displaying helping platform some of the designers there and wanting to display their work and helping them in that way. And I think Merchants is just a great place to look if you are a designer who wants to find partners to help you grow and advice and retail help, really, because retail is like its own moving beast. that kind of needs to be tamed and understood from the design perspective. And you do have so many roles, as Jacques has talked about, that you are performing as designers. And it's great to have even a partner to carry one bag of the many, many bags that you have to carry. Someone to help carry just one bag is fantastic. And I love the work that Merchants is doing in trying to become that partner who helps you carry some of the load. So Gugu, let us begin with you. You've got a beaded piece from your collection to show us.
Yes, so because of the move to Pretoria, I don't have some of the samples that are at Merchants with me. Yeah, because my team is still that side, and long story short. But from the collection we showcased at Fashion Week, titled Abantu Bakwantu, means the people of our people. It was very like traditionally inspired, ancestrally inspired by my African culture. And I wanted to re-envision it in modern contemporary fashion. I've always felt like as a Black designer, a lot of people are like, you have to, I don't know, be like traditionally Black. As if like I'm innately Black, so I don't need to like show that I'm Black. And there's always been that kind of conflict and conversation. So I wanted to do something that was me, that was contemporary, that was worldly, but still had my African tradition in it. So for SA Fashion Week, well, for SA Fashion Week, we did a lot of like natural knits. I worked with cape wools and mohair, and our whole entire collection was made from natural fibers, wool, merino wool and mohair, and everything in our collection was handmade. So every piece, we had a lot of knits, and that's what's at Merchants right now. I have a few samples from the knits that are made also from like silk mohair and merino wool, and in the Eastern Cape we work with a group of ladies that are absolutely amazing and talented. And sidetrack, craft and like arts is very big in the Eastern Cape, and it's what we're known for, and it's like one of our big skills, but it's a dying skill, and it's also a skill that a lot of people aren't really taking value in. So you'll get a lot of people that are so talented with crafting in their hands, but there's no really value for their work because people don't really pay for it anymore. So within this collection I wanted to kind of bring that back and bring it back into like retail and make it cool and make it wearable. And after Fashion Week, a lot of people have like been hiring out the pieces and buying the pieces for like commercials and things like this. So it's kind of fun to see beadwork and like craft come back in contemporary fashion. So going back to Fashion Week and Merchants, what you'll see is a lot of like our knits is one of our durags. So we have knitted durags. You'll see all of our hand knitted knits and all our crocheted pieces from like merino wool and mohair.
Great. I'm just going to show everybody a few photos because you don't have the samples with you. Just going to show everyone a couple of the photos of your collection of what's been shown at SA Fashion Week and all of this beautiful, beautiful hand knitted work. Can you tell us a little bit about this jacket, Gugu?
This jacket was a bit of like, you know, when you like at your 8th outfit and you don't know what you're doing. This was this jacket. I had all this amazing fabric from cape wools that I was like, oh my word, this is so amazing. I didn't know what to do with it, and I needed to do justice. And I had the two blues and the greens together, and they were just like laying on the table, and I was like, oh my God, is this a moment? And I started cutting out these shapes. It was very like one of those like very inspired pieces where I just cut out the shapes and just put together this jacket. And it's again one of our pieces where it's very easygoing, it's fashionable, but it's also very wearable and it's gender neutral. It's also oversized and very like comfortable. I'm all about comfort with my fashion, so it's a very like a statement piece, but you feel absolutely like you put in no effort into it. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for telling us about that one. I just have one more, I think, that's in here. Yes, so this is the lookbook photo of the piece that's behind you, the beaded piece.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about it and perhaps show the people any details up close that you're able to show?
Okay, cool. So this was my showstopper at Fashion Week. Again, I think this was one of the outfits that really showcased like the handcraftiness and how you can literally wear a piece that's fully crafted or fully handmade, but also still kind of beautiful and very contemporary fashion. And also very gender neutral. At least we can bring this a bit closer. So this is all made from wooden beads. And again, the colors are very versatile. The piece is also very versatile. And yeah, the knits are all again from mohair and handmade. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Gugu. Stop sharing my screen there. Thank you. Jacques, we will move to you. Can you tell us a little bit about the piece behind you and in general about the pieces that people can find at the Merchants on Long pop-up?
Sure. I have two pieces here that are available at the pop-up. Actually three, but I'll show it to you now. I think
We've got time for three.
Okay, cool. One is just kind of matches this one. It's very cute as a set. But anyway, I'll start off by saying kind of what my inspiration was for the collection. You know, I always have these kind of thoughts that I have around a collection, and when you look at the garments, it's not instantly always recognizable kind of what the inspiration was, because it's not like, otherwise I feel like sometimes it becomes too costumey for me. The collection is called Aestheticism, and as the name suggests, it's kind of inspired by aesthetics and the idea that we as humans are obsessed with visuals and obsessed with presentation and obsessed with the way that we look in the world, even though you think sometimes you go out and you think, I didn't put effort into this outfit, but there's still kind of a part of you that wanted to wear that for some reason. And really what within aesthetics, what the collection is trying to speak about is vanity, and the idea of vanity, and what does vanity really mean? And is vanity really as much of a negative concept as people make it out to be? Because for me, sometimes I feel that when I'm being vain, I feel better about myself, you know, because that reminds me to take care of myself and to be happy with what I'm presenting and who I am as a person and what I look like and my own confidence and space in the world. And the collection tries to look at different sides of vanity and not really deliver an opinion on vanity, but rather just like options within vanity. So there's a lot of synthetic references to vanity, meaning like plastic surgery, Botox, that kind of thing. But there's also kind of a lot of natural kind of references, blemishes and skin marks and scars and kind of things like that. And the idea is not to place one as more morally superior than the other, because I find like there's always this discourse between, if you wear makeup, you're vain, and if you don't wear makeup, there's always this kind of chatter going back and forth. And the collection aims to really celebrate vanity for whatever it means for anyone and how anyone wants to present themselves. And you are allowed to present yourself in any way that you want to, whether that be natural or synthetic, a version of both. You know, you can be fully biohuman if you choose to, right? So this, I'll start off with this piece. I'll get up. So this dress, it's a little shirt dress. It's a really kind of very cute wearable commercial piece. The prints, you'll find that we often do prints like this, often 2-color prints, and very, very bold, very, very graphic. The print specifically is inspired by, it's a bit personal for me, but it's inspired by, I have ever since I was young, I've struggled with very extreme eczema. To the point where I've had to go for surgeries and I've had to go for a bunch of experimental treatments. And it's something that really affected my self-confidence and the way that I felt in my own body for a very long time. And I wanted to bring that into the collection because it links up to kind of something that took away from my vanity. And now it's kind of something that I celebrate, right? But I wanted to make it beautiful and not grotesque, because it's just a natural skin condition that I have like any other skin condition, right? The print is, what I really like about the print is it's roller printed. So it didn't come out of a printer. It's not printed, well, it is printed by a machine, but it doesn't come out of a machine. What they do is they take a tin roller and then they engrave the print on the roller and then they roll it over the fabric. It's a very old school kind of manual way of printing. And it also picks up little imperfections and things, which creates like a really beautiful textural quality for me. And what's important and why I choose roller printing is because it still requires a lot of hands and a lot of people to check the fabric and to make sure that things are properly engraved, that the ink gets mixed by hand, you know, and I don't want to automate my processes to such a point that you kind of lose the human touch. So it is roller printed, and what's really cool is it's also roller printed in eco ink. So it's very, which is funny based on kind of what the print is about. It's very like sensitive to your skin. So it's like very, very soft on the skin. It's not damaging. It's really even good for baby wear. So that's really great. And The piece features just like a little cool wraparound detail, which was really just kind of inspired by the idea that when you go for surgery and you have to wrap up your bodies or your scars after you've been to surgery. And the shirt on the runway was shown with this skirt. It's like it's a mini skirt in a similar print, and then it had a jacket as well. The print and the skirt is available in merchants. And what's really cool about it is that what I like in the way that I design is I like to create pieces that when you wear them together, it's a really bold statement. But when you take them apart, they're actually really wearable. Like you can wear this with a t-shirt and white sneakers or whatever. And it's like, it's very, very easy to insert into your closet, right? Another piece that I have here has a similar story. It's a knitted dress. You can see the shape. It has a beautiful fitted shape and then like a little flare at the bottom, and it has these circular inserts around the hip line. It's just something you saw on the mini skirt as well. It's one of our signature details. This knit is a really cool story to me. So when we design our collections, we actually like only produce per order. So we don't pre-manufacture anything at all. And the problem with that is, or the reason we do it, first of all, is because I find it to be more sustainable, right? I don't want to sit with a bunch of stock and then have to discard of it or figure out. I'd rather make it custom to people's measurements and things like that. And the big problem with knitwear for me was, well, with knitwear, it comes fully fashioned straight out of the machine. So it's not like I can sit here in studio and sew it when I get an order, right? And I struggled for a long time to figure out, okay, so how do I get past that? And what we did is I worked with a company in Cape Town called Newco. I'll show you here. And what they actually did is, instead of knitting full garments, they knitted me panels like these. They come like this, right? And then what we do is when we receive the panels, we stretch them out by hand. It's a very long, tedious process. Stretch them out with a lot of heat and irons and things, so that, you know, when you hang it up, gravity doesn't take its toll. And by the time you wear it again, it's like went from knee length to ankle length or whatever. And then we actually worked with the physical panels and kind of drafted the patterns on top of them to make sure everything fits into a panel. And then we cut the garments from that. Some garments use one panel, some use three. And that way we can produce as we get orders, instead of feeling like we have to have 10 dresses here. And then, you know, we might sell 2 34s, but we only have one, and all of that drama. And the knit is also designed by me and programmed by Newco. It's inspired by blemishes, so whiteheads and blackheads. And it's 100% cotton, which is really, really cool. And they were one of the only knitters that I reached out to that could help me in knitting with cotton, which was really, really important for me, again, because of sustainability reasons and kind of just the feel on my skin as well, personally.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Jacques. I'm just going to share my screen again. I just want people to see the runway images of these exact two looks.
Sure.
I can just get the technology to play ball. Yes, I can. Right. So is this the knit dress?
Yeah, and this
kind of
one she's just wearing like a little crop thing over.
But then these are kind of the panels that you talked about, the circular panels at the hip.
Yeah, exactly. And we did the dress in two versions. There's one with and without sleeves. So she's actually wearing the one without sleeves, but then wearing this kind of jacket over. But the merchant has the one that the sleeve is already built in. So you don't really need anything over, especially because it's winter right now. But because it's cotton, it works really well for summer as well, surprisingly.
Yeah. And then this was the other look. So the shirt, the jacket, and the skirt all together with very similar panels at the hip, actually.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
the knitted dress, but obviously a very different effect, being a woven fabric and not a knit.
Yeah, exactly. And it has a bit more flair. And it's something we do often. I love inserting shapes around the hip. I don't know why. It's just one of my things, especially these curved ones. You'll find it in a lot of our garments in different kind of variations.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from anyone in the webinar today? Any questions? You've got 5 seconds. to put up your hand if you've got a question, or to just add it to the chat for us. But if there are no questions, I would just like to say, first of all, thank you so much to Gugu and to Jacques for offering us all of this insight and sharing so vulnerably from inside your businesses. We really appreciate it. And we're so excited to see what community you're able to build and what new customers you're able to find through the pop-up and through all of the work that you're doing with merchants. And to everyone else who is joining us, we wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us for this whole series. A special shout out to Rebecca Giorgio. I hope I've said that correctly. Rebecca's been the first person to join each and every session and has stayed with us right to the end. So we appreciate your presence, Rebecca, and just your time and for spending that with us. We hope that everyone's enjoyed this session. If you've been with us like Rebecca for the whole series, thank you so much. We would love to hear from you and get your thoughts. So you can share those with us with your highlights, your learnings, everything on social media using the hashtag Growth and Truth. A quick reminder that your registration for the whole series has registered you to receive a little bit more information and inspiration from both Merchants on Long and from African Fashion Weekly, and that we would love to see you at one of the Merchants on Long pop-up events. Cape Town shoppers, you have another month to explore the work of these talented designers at the V&A Merchants on Long store. You may have another month, but I wouldn't wait that long. We really don't know how long everything will be in store and everything will stay. So I would rush to that if I were you. Johannesburg shoppers, you need to run to the Keys Art Mile this afternoon because the Okapi store pop-up featuring a wider selection of merchants' goods will end today. The recordings of all 3 sessions from the last 3 weeks will be made available within a week, so they should be available to you in your inbox from next week. You'll get 1 email with 3 links showing you all of the sessions, just so you can catch up and revisit and be re-inspired and be re-encouraged by these wonderful stories of growth. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely weekend.
Bye.